Joshua Batten and Sean O'Sullivan, welcome back to Australian Musician.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Cheers.
We're talking to you, Joshua, because you've got a new album out on October 3 called Learn to Live Again. Sean, you are the producer, engineer. Joshua, I know you're a big fan of prog rock. How long have you been wanting to make a concept album?
Pretty much since I discovered that a concept album was a thing that could be done. So I went through, I guess, like, I grew up with a lot of classic rock at like age 7, age 8. I grew up with the early stuff, Fleetwood Mac, Queen, Beatles. And then I kind of went through a bit of a dark period where no one was showing me anything. But then I had this kind of renaissance in my teen years where I discovered Tommy and The Wall. And even later, I guess, stuff like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And even newer stuff like Spock's Beard and Transatlantic and Dream Theater. And I've always thought like two things. I've thought wait for the right moment and write what you know. And this whole experience that we've had over the last 2 years with mental health and the pandemic is just, it was just a matter of circumstance that I ended up writing all these songs that somehow managed to tell a narrative.
Yeah. The concept of Learn to Live Again is quite personal. Why was it important to tell your story?
I think when we first went into lockdown in March 2020, something I noticed was that a lot of people started feeling for the first time a lot of the anxieties and the fears that I have to go through on a daily basis. I'm constantly dealing with fear of the unknown and wanting certainty and wanting purpose. And I found that once everyone was in lockdown, I'd kind of gotten a lot of my panic in early, like in the weeks leading up to the pandemic really taking over. But like everyone, I was kind of just waiting for the whole thing to blow over. And once I realized it wasn't going to blow over, well, I can't control the future anymore. So I got to focus on what I can control, and what I could control is my emotional response.
Yeah. What's the significance of the album title?
The album title, Learn to Live Again. So the title track was the first thing I wrote specifically after going into lockdown at a time when the only things we were really allowed to leave the house for were exercise and groceries. So I would go down to the local store at about 10 or 11 in the morning, and the only people out and about were the coffee shop owners and the joggers and the cyclists, and usually the only time you see those people out and about is like at 5 or 6 in the morning. So I just kind of felt like we were stuck in a loop. And so that was really the kind of the starting point for me writing all these songs about this period, or during this period. But also I felt like I kind of had to learn to live again as well, like as I said, with reevaluating my purpose and figuring out what I was going to do next.
Yeah. And Sean, what were your first thoughts when Josh came to you with these songs and the concept?
I thought we got a lot of work ahead. The song's a great song, so I my thoughts was I can't wait to tackle it. So I knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge, but I knew Josh was prepared. He always is. So it was a good thoughts I got when I started the album.
Yeah. What did you see your role as with the album?
Really just get the best out of Josh, and for Josh to realise what his strengths are, and to enhance those. That's my main role, and then to make it as smooth as possible for the musos to come in, for the mapping out of everything, the technical side of things. Let Josh help produce it this time, so give Josh more control over the direction of it, and just put ideas in front of him. So that's more my role, to really not sort of oversee everything, but make sure everything gets done smoothly.
Yeah. And Josh, what did you learn from recording the last album with Sean? Maybe lessons that you brought into this album?
Yeah, so certainly I definitely appreciate and understand the importance of being prepared, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've never kind of started recording an album the same way each time, but they always kind of end up the same way with me and Sean working on them in the studio and tweaking. But this time I actually recorded all the scratch tracks at home, whereas for the last one, I was able to come in here and just lay down some acoustic guitar and voice. Because I was writing this obviously in lockdown, I had just gotten a new laptop with some new DAW software, so I was able to record acoustic guitar and voice and piano, and just use that as the bed for all the tracks, especially the more technical songs that have a lot of time signature changes. So I was able to really map those out properly, and the same for the whole album. I was able to properly make proper tempo maps for everything and just send them off to Sean.
Which made it a lot easier for me. Yeah.
I just want to talk about a few tracks. Waiting for the Moment is an epic track featuring some good old-fashioned prog rock organ in the intro that maybe John Lord and Rick Wakeman will be proud of. Do you remember when you first came across that big Hammond organ sound?
I probably was aware of it, like before I started getting into those artists specifically, but certainly it was ramped up by getting into Deep Purple and Yes and all those classic guys. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And how was that organ sound created?
That one was done with my software. You played it, and I think so.
I think that was a combination. So the organ on Waiting for the Moment was actually done by Richard Allison.
Ah, it was, yeah. You're right.
Who is in a folk band called the Merlin Bird, and also is Tony Banks in a Genesis tribute band. And his home studio was the only other proper studio I recorded it in. I would go around to his house in Brunswick, and I kind of showed him how to go through, because we tried that with another keyboard player and that didn't quite work
to plan.
No, but because Richard really understood the music and comes from that kind of classically trained background, he understood what I was going for, and he's played a lot of organ and those kind of sounds in his time with various bands.
Yeah, the song towards the end of the album called Existential Guardian, which goes for 13 minutes. Was that song always going to be that epic, or did it occur naturally?
Yeah, so once I knew I was writing a narrative and a story and a song and an album that was going to have all these various styles, I really wanted there to be one kind of big breakthrough moment, one where, like, if not epic in terms of length, and certainly epic in terms of emotion, where I really just kind of, where there's a massive turning point in my attitude towards the pandemic and my attitude towards being a person and being a musician and everything about everything that I guess I take for granted in life. And so I kind of wrote that in like 3 sections. I kind of wrote the first bit based on an old riff that I had for a good few years that just never had a home. And then basically just kind of went from there. And we actually recorded, that was actually the last song that we recorded the drums for. Yep. And turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because we got just about all the drums recorded in the reprieve in the first half of 2021, and then we all went back into lockdown. And that actually gave me a chance to go back into Logic and rework some of the time signatures and polish it up a little bit more.
Yeah. So were the drums real? There's a track Fortress. There's a fabulous drum intro to that, which sounds like it's been played by a real drummer.
Yeah. So all the drums on the album were done by.
Drums are real.
Yeah. All done by the incredible Jesse Bates from the Sammy Owen Band and his own Zeppelin projects. And no disrespect to the drummers I've worked with in the past, but I thought we wanted something a little bit different.
He's another level.
We wanted something a bit different. And before meeting Jesse, I'd only seen him like play in free time, just do his solos. And I thought, well, can this guy play time? And then he came in and once we kind of tamed him down and got him to
His first session was, 8 hours? He was almost on the drum kit.
He's a monster.
8 hours, non-stop. In the end, he's like, oh, can I add this in? Can I do this? And I was like, oh, geez, this guy's a machine. He's
and even though he can hit quite hard, he's got that kind of Bonham-esque intensity. He knows when to tone it down and when to just let the song play itself.
Do you remember what the kit was that you used?
Oh, it had custom kits. I think he had bits and pieces of all sorts of things. I'm really not sure.
I think it was a Pearl. I think it was mostly like your kind of Pearl 4-piece, but with his cymbals.
He had a lot of custom.
He did bring a rototom in for that extra sound and a few chimes and bells. Literally brought in all the bells and whistles.
He sure did.
Who plays the fabulous riffs in Circuit Breaker?
So, the guitar was all me, and the keyboard on Circuit Breaker was once again Richard Allison, who comes from that background. Like, he grew up in Birmingham in the UK in the 80s, at a time when Marillion and Genesis were the big bands he listened to. So he certainly, and obviously a lot of Pink Floyd as well. So that was his big influence. And those sessions were actually done over Zoom. We patched into his studio, and he was able to show me what he was doing, and it's amazing how well it came out.
Tell me about some of the other musicians that appear on the album.
Yeah, so originally on keyboards we were actually going to have David Van Pelt from Acolyte, and this was before things opened up again and Acolyte's activity kind of ramped up again, but I was able to get him on the one track, which is Fortress, and I think he added, not exactly what I would have thought, but he added his own style and gave it that kind of modern kind of sound. And
Jason Voorher, he was a great. He added so much to the project, bass for everything, and also vocals, backing vocals. So
I was very familiar with Jason Voorher's work because one of my favourite live DVDs is Full Circle by Bertel, Shorrock and Goebel. So I was as soon as Sean said there was an opportunity to get Jason in to not only play but also sing as well, I thought absolutely get him in, because I did all the bass on the last record. But I thought, I want to get an actual bass player who can bring in some stuff. And
you don't get any better than Jason. You get different, but you don't get any better.
And extending on that, I was very lucky as well to get Simon Hosford to play on Give Up the Throne. His guitar solo is the only bit of guitar on the album not played by me. We almost didn't get him. I almost went with another guitarist because he was just taking so long to get back to me. But eventually he sent me a message to say, hey, how's this? And we put it in, and then a few days later he said, oh, hey mate, I think I could have done better, and actually sent me a completely new solo as well. So
so we cut the two together and made one magic one.
Yeah. So how did you record the guitars, Sean?
Josh's guitars were just recorded through a few different amps, actually. I'm pretty sure we used some of the Messer, didn't we, and some of your amps?
Yeah, so I think we started off with the same way we had on the last record, which was with a Laney head going into a 4x12 Marshall mic'd up in the performance room. But then once the opportunity came up to have a Mesa 5 amp, and once we started working with that, we realized this is the sound in my head, because I'm a big John Petrucci fan, and he's a Mesa guy through and through. And I was able to discover not only could I get that kind of Petrucci tone, but also the Gilmour tone and a bit of the Bonamassa tone, and just a bit of everything all in one.
Basically, it's the best amp I've got in the studio. It can do everything. It's amazing. And once you learn how to use it, we just sort of went straight to that.
Did you use many guitars on the album?
Yeah, so I used my PRS as always, and I think we used Sean's Strat.
Definitely used
and
Strat.
A couple of Mason acoustics. I don't think there was any unusual things on the record, but I tell you who did bring in a lot of guitars was Jason.
He did,
he brought in about 5 different basses. So I think he brought in a Yamaha 5-string for Give Up the Throne. He brought in a fretless for Fortress, and
the Beatles guitar.
Yeah, he played a Hofner Beatle bass with was it with flat wounds? I think.
So.
So that was for Britannia, the Beatles pastiche. And then his main 2 basses were his P bass and his Music Man Stingray.
What about the string arrangements? Who wrote those?
Yeah, so strings were handled by an MSO cellist and Sarah Palmer of Sarah and Silas. And Silas also did accordion on Everybody's Story. It's a shame I couldn't get the two together on the one track, but c'est la vie. But again, going back to a lot of the records that inspired this, especially a lot of the stuff that Neil Morse does and has done with Spock's Beard and his solo work, there's a lot of cello and string arrangements. And unlike the last couple of times we've had strings in the studio where it's been mostly kind of pads and we've let the string players kind of do their thing, I knew there was like some specific lines that absolutely had to be there. So I went into Sibelius and wrote out some very basic charts, expecting the players to kind of embellish them, which I guess they did.
They did, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in a simple way. Yep.
Sean, I've known Joshua for a few years now and watched him develop as an artist. His singing voice has definitely matured, particularly with this album.
Yep.
In what ways have you noticed the development of Joshua?
I think first of all, his songwriting. The songwriting is improving every song he writes, really, and the diversity of his songwriting is improving. His singing style is slowly, developing more and more and more. I think a lot of that's done in the studio as well. It's hard to develop these things just playing live all the time. But when you get to do a big album like this and you get to spend a lot of time on vocals, you really develop that. But I think his biggest development is his songwriting. I think that's the one that's really standing out, and I can't wait to see where it is in 3, 4, 5, 10 years time.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, see how that goes. But I think one of the most interesting things to come out of this record was a song called Burnout, which was the last thing we wrote. And that one, I hadn't even finished that one when I came into the studio. I just had this basic little chord progression, and in working with Sean, we managed to turn it into a proper song, gave it a basic structure and a melody. And then I went home and wrote a set of lyrics that was completely different to what I thought the song was going to be. But turned out to be a great collaboration. So going forward, I have no idea what my next project's going to be. But going forward, I know I'm going to have to come up with some singles to before I can dive headfirst into another full album. So it may well be that I come in with nothing, and Sean and I just come up with some ideas on the spot.
What I like to do is, so Josh comes in with something, and I go, it sort of sounds like this. Okay, I'll play him some songs that he doesn't usually listen to. I said, something a bit like this, and we could do this, and then suddenly Josh says, okay, we'll do that, and then bang, you've gone down a completely different direction. So it's pretty cool.
Is there a track on the album that's closer to your heart than others?
Well, certainly Existential Guardian is the track I've always wanted to write, and I really hope that there's a part of me that has the strength to write more like that in the future. I don't know what they're going to be about, and I may have to do a fair bit of research and actually go into scholar mode to find the right stories. But certainly writing stuff that kind of flows onto each other is something I really want to do in the future.
Yeah. How did Creative Victoria help with the creation of the album?
So about halfway through 2020, when it became clear that the music industry wasn't going to bounce back easily, Creative Victoria announced these COVID recovery grants. And at the time, I thought that was kind of when I started to realize that these songs that I was writing, even though they were completely different styles, kind of had a linking narrative to them. And so I put together a very rough story and some very basic demos, and put together a budget and sent that off to Creative Victoria. And a few months went by, and then lo and behold, at the start of January 21, I got an email saying, "Hey, don't tell anybody, but we'd be more than happy to fund your project." And that was. I really don't think I've been able to make this record the way I did without their support.
Yeah. Tell me about the album launch that you have planned.
So because there's not a huge market for giant prog concept albums played in their tiny by a full orchestra, what I am doing is kind of a semi-acoustic abridgment of the album. As part of the Melbourne Fringe Festival, and that'll be at the MC Showroom from the 13th to the 16th of October, and that'll be me on acoustic and electric guitar and even some piano, accompanied by my friend Frank Alacandra, Frankie, on keyboards and tambourine and backing vocals, and a newcomer whose name's Aidan Gadsden on guitar and bass and backing vocals. So with no drums, we've got to try and fill in the rhythm in other places. So rhythm in the acoustic guitar, rhythm in the piano. I'll have my looper on stage, if not live looping, then at least playing some percussive stuff that's been pre-recorded, and I'll be telling the story, kind of going, taking everyone on the journey with me. Explaining what the songs mean to me and where they fit into the narrative.
Yeah, Sean, the album, the way it turned out, did it turn out the way that you were thinking at the beginning?
I think it turned out better, to tell you the truth. Because when I was first talking about it, I was like, oh, geez, this is going to be interesting. And I think the way it just blends together, it came out better than what I originally thought. There's no doubt about that. And also the musos, we were just lucky with the session musos that we got. They Jesse and Jason mainly. Without them,
and Richard,
yeah, it just couldn't have been what it was. But they just did such a good job on sort of putting together. And Josh's input to me made it much easier as well.
Yeah. So what's next for Joshua Batten?
I guess next is to try and reach a point where I can play this thing live properly, the way I want to, like doing the whole thing from start to finish with a big band. And if that doesn't work, just getting a new blues quartet off the ground and doing some festival shows and trying to hit some regional areas and hopefully get interstate or at least take a holiday, well-earned break after these last couple of years, and come back rejuvenated with a new view of the world and a positive outlook, but not too positive because otherwise there's not too much to complain about. But I'm hoping that there's something in me that I'm just hoping to find the beauty in the little things and take those ideas and stories that some people take for granted and put my twist on them.
Yeah. Well, Learn to Live Again is out on October 3. Both of you, it was quite an achievement.
The week before Mental Health Awareness Day.
Yeah. So congratulations to you both, and thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks,
Greg.
No worries.